Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Michael Schroeder, and today I will be talking to you about Expectancy Violations Theory by Judy Burgoon. I have a slideshow attached in the forum. If you can follow along, it'll make it easier to follow along with the presentation and keep up with everything and just retain the knowledge better. First, we're going to start with an overview of what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about the scholar, Judy Burgoon. Next, we're going to talk about the origins of expectancy violation theory. I'm going to discuss what that theory is, discuss some applications of the theory, gotta love the application portion, and then we're going to talk about some conclusions that'll help draw this whole presentation together. So first off, Judy Burgoon. She was born in 1948 in Ames, Iowa. She's a very famous communication scholar in the field of communication studies, especially nonverbal communication. She's developed theories such as expectancy violations theory, obviously since we're talking about it. She's also developed social meanings model, interpersonal adaptation theory, and interpersonal deception theory. She's won numerous awards, a couple of them just to mention a few. She's been named a Fellow of the International Communication Association, which I was doing some reading up on that, and it's actually a very big honor. There are only about 30 scholars in the communication field that have been awarded that honor, so that's a big deal. She's also won the Stephen H. Chaffee Career Productivity Award. Again, she's done this for a long time, several decades, and she's actually still coming up and presenting new theories and contributing to the field of communication. She's also currently a professor at the University of Arizona, teaching communication studies. So the origins of this theory. The original focus of this theory was on nonverbal behavior and interactions and messages. It's since developed into more than that. It's also built on Edward Hall's work on proxemics. Edward Hall in 1959 wrote a book that described, in American culture anyway, 4 proxemic zones. Proxemics is basically just the proximity of one person to another, whether it's nearby or far away. The 4 zones he came up with were intimate, personal, social, and public. Intimate zone is basically 0 inches, imagine from your face basically, 0 inches to about 18 inches. That's kind of your very intimate bubble. You know, if you penetrate that, that's a very intimate interaction. Personal bubble is, he describes as the 18 inches to about 4 feet. So it's even further out, but it's still kind of in your personal bubble. You've probably heard that terminology, kind of is drawn from Edward Hall's work. His social bubble is about 4 to 10 feet, so it's a little bit further out, and then the public one is 10 feet to basically infinity. Anything beyond 10 feet. As I discussed, the theory has grown to include more things than just the nonverbal, just proxemics. It now includes both of those, but it also includes verbal, what you're actually saying, the words. It's also including behaviors, what's expected, what's not expected. So next, again, we'll discuss more of what the theory is. A baseline that West and Turner talk about is basically expectancy violation theory is an intentional and unintentional messages that violate preconceived norms that result in either positive or negative perceptions. We'll unpack that in just a little bit in the next slide. We'll also be talking about the concept that a violation can be good. That's one of the things I really like about this theory, because violation is just a bad word. You don't want to violate anything, and a violation is just bad. This theory kind of turns that one up on its head and turns it, you can be a good thing, which is kind of neat. We're also going to talk about confirmations. So the confirmations Burgoon talks about, there are 2 types. There's a positive confirmation and a negative confirmation. The positive confirmation basically is where an action is expected and it's favorably accepted. So we'll say person A is sitting next to person B on a sofa. That's normal, right? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing surprising. So it's normal, it's expected. And the other person is continuing to sit there. They don't get up and leave or anything like that. That's a positive confirmation. It sounds simple, but it's a baseline for the theory. The negative confirmation is basically where the action is expected, but it's negatively accepted. So again, person A sitting on the sofa, person B, negative confirmation, well, maybe he doesn't like person A, so person B gets up and walks off. Or just doesn't like person A sitting there. It's still negative accepted, even if they continue to sit there. So there are 2 different types of violations as well, positive and negative. A positive violation is basically where an action violates the receiver's expectations, but it's favorably accepted. We'll say 2 people are on a date, person A and B. They're on a romantic date. Person, they're just watching a movie maybe, and then person A decides, oh, I'm going to snuggle up to person B, kind of go into that intimate bubble that we talked about. That kind of violates the expectations, at least that person's bubble, that intimate bubble. Whoa, person right here. But then like, wait, we're on a romantic date. I like that. That's a good thing. So violates the expectation, but it's favorably accepted. A negative violation is similar. Basically, it's an action that violates the receiver's expectation, but it's negatively accepted. So let's say, again, person A and B on the sofa. Maybe you have a very touchy-feely uncle over here, and then a nephew or niece who doesn't really like it. And the touchy-feely uncle kind of like gives a hug, and the nephew or niece is like, no, I don't want a hug. Negative violation. Pretty simple. Next, the theory does a pretty good job of accounting for social and cultural norms and their impact on perception. This is important to realize, as Casimir states. He says, individual guidelines for interpreting nonverbal behavior are based, to a large extent, on the people's experiences and previous interactions as well as on social norms and standards. Basically, what he is saying is people draw from past experiences to figure out what is normal, what is okay, and how am I going to react to it. Now, the tricky part is, this is based on cultures. There are a lot of different cultures. They don't always have the same standards or society norms. It's also dependent on the person. So the takeaway from this is basically what determines a violation, what determines confirmation, whether it be positive or negative, is subjective. It's completely subjective. It's up to each person, it's up to each culture. Excuse me. And frankly, it's unrealistic to create a linear person A is going to make this action, person B is going to react this way, and therefore it will be a positive violation. That's not really possible because it is also subjective. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Now, how can expectancy violation theory be applied? Gotta love the application part. I like theories that are actually applicable that you can turn into daily life. There are a lot of applications to this theory, actually. Everything from interviews, conversations, marital discourses, persuasion, conflict, deception, men and women, social media, electronic communication. The list goes on and on and on. We're only going to talk about a couple of those because time is short. So one of the examples that is really prominent is texting. We'll say person A is a husband going to work, and he's at a really high stress, high ops tempo, a lot of deadlines job, and he's just really busy. He's in the work mode, and all of a sudden he gets a text from his wife from home just saying, "Oh, I love you, honey. I hope you have a great day." That's a great thing. That's a good thing. We'll take two situations from here. Situation one, we'll say the husband is like, "Oh, why thank you, honey. That's great. This brightens my day." So I'll write back, "Oh, I love you too, honey." Something like that. That's a positive violation. The husband is just at work, in a work mode, and he gets this text, "Whoa," breaking his expectations. "Oh, this is great. I love it." That's a positive violation. Situation two, same husband, wife, same text, same work mode, and he's just super busy, super behind the deadline, and he gets the text and he says, "Oh my goodness, this is such a distraction. I've got to work on this. I'm so behind all this," and he doesn't. It's negatively accepted. It's a negative violation. Another example are online avatars and profiles. Nowak and Rao basically say that anthropomorphic avatars, which are human-like, something that resembles a human, they are more positively accepted and potential to be a positive violation than a non-anthropomorphic avatar. Probably drawing on the fact that humans connect well with other humans, not necessarily some ethereal thing or a made-up fantasy thing. Goffman talks about how social interaction is based on the presumption of truth, which is true most of the time, but it's interesting if you talk about the concept of deception, kind of violates that. This theory is actually good for talking about deception as well. And in our digital age, it's much easier to bend reality online and digitally, bend the truth and reality. Kund Miri talks about how there are dating sites, and he says that 1 out of every 10 dating site, excuse me, 1 out of every 10 dating profile is completely false. It's a scam. And that may not sound like a high percentage, 10%, but that's a lot of profiles and everything when you consider the total number. And if those are the number that are totally false, consider how many more of the rest of the 90% contain falsities, little white lies, exaggerations, or leaving out chunks of truth just to make the person look better. Very interesting concept. Persuasion, this applies to persuasion tactics as well. This is one part that I really enjoyed. Basically, the idea would be to set your expectations low, middle of the road bar, and then at some point surprise them with a much better expectation with, oh, this much better. So if you have a product that a consumer thinks, oh, it's just going to be this good, it's average, and then they get it or they see some aspect and they're like, whoa, that totally blew my mind, that is an awesome product, I really want that. That is a positive violation and is very useful for persuasion tactics. So some conclusions that we can draw from expectancy violations theory. One, the theory raises awareness for communication dynamics in general, what's involved, how people interpret things, and the possible reactions that can come from actions. They can be used for communication advantages, like we just talked about with that persuasion. Let's say a quick example on that as well, with a real estate agent maybe knows their client really wants a nice backyard for their family. So when they go to view a house, they talk about the normal selling points. Oh, it has a nice kitchen, a nice this, nice that. But they don't even mention the backyard. So the clients come in, they see the house, and like, okay, it's pretty good. But then with their own eyes, they see the backyard, and they're like, oh my goodness, I want this house. This is a brilliant backyard. Love the house. We'll take it. That's a positive violation, great for persuasion tactics. Another conclusion, this theory, it practically discusses the intricacies of nonverbal communication and how the perceptions can influence interpretation. Like we've talked about, it's very important to know that part of the communication process. One of the neat things as well, this theory is actually pretty consistent with biblical teaching. Consider Matthew 7:12, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If you abide by that, you get rid of the deception part. You're going to act as people would expect more, and you might be able to get some more positive violations by understanding that process. And finally, Burgoon concludes with basically the idea of meeting expectations is better than committing a negative violation. And then also, a positive violation is better than meeting expectations. It's a good concept just to kind of round out the theory. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation very much. Thank you.